Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Zahra Alawi podcast. Today we were joined by Sister Hawra Milani, who has a background in computer science and specializes in cybersecurity. Now, today's topic was about AI and everything about AI and cybersecurity. We talked about the positives of AI as well as the dangers of AI, and we talked about what we could do to protect ourselves while using AI. It was a very, very informative discussion and a discussion that will benefit us all, especially parents. So stay tuned. This episode will definitely get you thinking. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Hawra, it's an absolute honor to have you here today.
Thank you. The honor is mine.
Thank you. So today's topic, I feel like, is a very important topic to speak about because with the rise of AI and technology, it does have an impact and a role to play in many people's lives. And many people are not informed about the technicalities of AI or what AI is. To start off with, what sparked your interest in cybersecurity and then later on going into AI?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, actually, because my background is in computer science and I've done that for over a decade. My interest in cybersecurity actually stemmed from being in school, being a teacher. I was teaching computer science and I noticed the signs of cyberbullying that were happening within the classroom. And I had a real interest in the way traditional bullying was then being moved to an online space and how children are not even protected anymore in their own bedroom. Previously, when you looked at traditional bullying, it would be contained in the classroom or in the playground at school when we're talking about bullying that happened in schools, right? Just for context. When mobile phones came and we had the internet, then I realized, okay, well, children are not protected even at home. And, we all know the negative effects of bullying on children. So that kind of pushed me into the cybersecurity space and how tech amplifies real life events and issues. So from there, I started researching cybersecurity in the context of cyberbullying. And that pushed me into data privacy and the cybersecurity world generally. So I've been in that space for about 5 years now and have been focusing my research right now on the cybersecurity and data privacy issues of AI applications when it comes to vulnerable populations, because there's a whole other world and whole other field and whole other usage of vulnerable populations. By that, we mean people who are, for example, the area I'm working in is autistic individuals and how they interact because of the level of vulnerability that they go through. So the kind of main topic there, main connection, is human usage of AI applications.
Wow, that's amazing. So what exactly is AI? How would you define it to the general population and what different types of AI is there?
So AI, as we know, stands for artificial intelligence. And that's, in very basic terms, us as humans teaching a computer or a machine to do what humans generally do. So whether that's writing and, creating content, generating images, solving problems. Right now, coding, I keep saying artificial intelligence is the result of programmers coding themselves out of a job, right? So 10 years ago, it was, everyone was promoting the job of a software engineer. Now software engineers have coded themselves out of a job because we've passed it on to artificial intelligence. There's a lot of talk about the fact that it's not the best at programming just yet, but a lot of us have tried AI tools and have realized how good they are at writing and generating content. So generally, it's the idea of humans teaching a machine to do their job. And the second part of your question in terms of the different types, right now we've got, again, in very basic terms, not being super technical here, we've got two types of AI. We've got the narrow AI and what we call general AI. We haven't reached the stage of general AI just yet, but narrow AI is teaching a machine to do very specific tasks. And that's what, for example, large language models and the tools that we have right now, they are within the idea or within the field of narrow AI. There are very specific tasks that they can do. It's not a wide range of tasks. We will be moving and we are moving towards general AI. And that's when artificial intelligence, really, really surpasses human intelligence.
And what is general AI? Wow.
It's going to be able to do a lot, and that's the scary bit. So it's not my area of specialism, but there's a lot being done, and that's when I think we start getting a little bit worried.
Yeah. Wow. I think now, before we move on to the concerns and the dangers of AI, let's say, how has AI transformed technology, and how has it changed day-to-day activities or life in general?
I think a lot of the mundane tasks, quote unquote, we're passing on to AI to do. Or it's actually, I'd imagine that it's just speeding things up. So if I'm going to look at the way I do things or the way my friends do things, it's speeding things up in terms of search. It's giving me quick answers, as opposed to previously when I'd go use a search engine to find a piece of information and start going through the pages. Right now, if we're talking about AI chatbots, well, let's focus on AI chatbots right now within the context of this, because AI is such a huge field, right? But when we're utilizing it for content creation, we're utilizing it for information searching, we're utilizing it for generating images and all sorts of, creating cartoons and videos and all sorts of content. That's a lot of what people are using it for. People, businesses are also using it to automate tasks and speed things up. So there's a wide range of things that people are utilizing AI for.
Do you believe it will overtake normal jobs?
Controversial question. It's gonna put a lot of people out of jobs. And I've been reading about this topic a lot recently. It's going to put a lot of people out of jobs. But the idea that the tech companies are talking about now is that, it's going to generate further jobs as well. People will have to develop new skills. Simon Sinek the other day was saying in a podcast about a week ago that it's starting to do the knowledge work. He's like, we're worried that it's doing the knowledge work right now, and that means people whose job was focused on reading and writing and publishing, it's taking over their work, but it's not taking over the work of people who are doing physical work like hairdressers and plumbers and builders yet. And so he was talking about how over the decades, the world has flipped back again, where people were flocking towards becoming programmers and software engineers and doing desk work to now actually doing physical work because AI is taking over that. So in terms of it taking over jobs, it's already happened.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. I truly believe, I think everyone to a certain extent uses AI in this day and age. But why is there so much panic around it, or the unknown, or many people being against AI or warning people of the dangers of AI?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of generally, I'll talk about generally why people are worried about it, and then talk about my specific work. Generally, people are worried about it because there are a few things. We're depending on it for information. We're depending on it for our thinking. We're outsourcing our thinking. So if we think many years back, right, we used to do calculations and mental math off the top of our head. We used to, I don't know about you, but as a child, I used to memorize all my friends and family's phone numbers and mobile numbers. Right now, there's not many mobile numbers I know. The closest person to you would just search their name on the phone. You're not going to be searching or even tapping in their number, right? So we passed that on to mobile phones. We passed that ability in our memory to mobile phones. And now the general worry, in the socio-technical world, is that we are now passing our intellectual abilities and our thinking and our problem solving and our, everything to do with thinking. We're passing that on to AI. You can go on a chatbot. Let's use ChatGPT for an example, right? You have a business idea. You go on ChatGPT, you start writing a couple of lines. It suddenly created an entire business plan for you and how you're going to monetize it and how long it's going to take, and writing the emails for you and creating the entire marketing plan. It's super exciting, but we're passing all of that onto AI. What's going to be left for us and our own thinking? So that's kind of the general worry that you hear in the various fields and what's being spoken about. My particular concern and my focus is understanding how, when we're outsourcing all this information and when we're giving all this personal data to a company that we don't know where they're storing this data. We don't know who has access to this data. We don't know what they're going to do with this data. And, we can come to the questions later of, oh, I've got nothing to hide. Oh, yeah, I do want personalized ads like I did with social media. It's helpful for me. We can talk about all of that. But the general concept of why we're fearful of it and why it's worrying, let's say, is that this is very, very personal data. And it's not just information that we're giving it, it's what it's capable of extracting from us through its prompting and through its questions. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's
definitely come into that in terms of the security elements of it. And it's so true in terms of what you said. It's kind of, do you feel like AI is kind of dumbing us down? Because I remember back in the day, for example, when phones came out and then the Google Maps and navigation, my dad used to say, we used to use A to Z to get around, and now you don't even need to memorize routes and certain areas. And now I think with AI, we really don't need to think, because anything we it could write up a lesson plan, as you said, it can write up everything for you.
Yeah.
So do you think AI is in a sense dumbing down the population?
That's such a controversial question. It's a strong one as well. Like, that's going to have, people are going to have different opinions about it, because some people are like, actually, I've managed to outsource all the mundane work and all the repetitive work to AI, and so I don't have to think about it anyway, because I've learned how to do this skill, so let someone else do it. And instead of paying a PA or paying someone, a human to do it, AI is doing it for me. But on the other hand, and then I'll free myself up for the actual intellectual work. But on the other hand, are we actually doing that? Are we freeing ourselves up for intellectual work? I think it's a very personalized kind of experience. Some people are utilizing it to learn more. Some people are utilizing it to learn languages and improve their intelligence. And some people are actually passing on. You've got students using it to create their essays. Are they going to learn anything from that process? Again, I think it was Simon Sinek on a podcast last week. He hasn't. He hasn't sponsored, but he said something that really intrigued me. He said, "I'm more intelligent, I'm smarter, and I'm more knowledgeable, I'm more learned, not because my ideas are in a book, but it's because of the difficult process I went through of putting these ideas together and researching and learning that I'm a smarter person. It's not just, the culmination of all these ideas into a book. Right now, any of us can go on ChatGPT and get it to write a book for us. What will we have learnt about any of it?"
No.
So
definitely, yeah. I mean, when you see, like, for example, I saw a video of someone graduating, they said, and their graduation said, all thanks to ChatGPT. Oh. And then there's, as you said, ChatGPT can write a book. I know people personally that have gone on ChatGPT, written a book, and then sold it on Amazon, where Amazon prints they don't even need to print the book.
Yeah, print on demand on Amazon.
Print on demand on Amazon. So at the same time, as you said, like, how do we know someone's qualifications is actually of themselves, or is it just generated by ChatGPT, changed and modified by themselves, and then they end up with the qualifications? So at the end of the day, how do we know what someone is qualified? I mean, even GPs right in front of their patients sometimes are Googling different symptoms and coming up. So how do we then know who's actually qualifies? And I think with the rise of technology, you can put a label. I can say I'm a professional in this area, and it doesn't need to be verified. So then how do we know if someone is truly...
That is very worrying as well.
An expert,
I think it's food for thought. It is definitely something for us to think about and look at ourselves and how we're going to utilize that to learn, or we're going to find a lot of fakers out there. So
definitely, yeah.
It is very worrying indeed.
Yeah. So how can we use AI responsibly?
There are so many successful stories we've heard of people achieving really, really great stuff through AI. I know that neurodivergent individuals, people with ADHD, with autism, have utilized AI to when it comes to their learning, for example, when it comes to trying to understand difficult concepts, when it comes to trying to understand their legal rights. They'll put up a contract or terms of service or a privacy policy of, for example, trying to understand how to utilize Instagram or what Instagram does to their data, right? You can instead of trying to read through the tens of pages of what it does and what they do with your data, you can grab that, put it on AI or ChatGPT, right? And get the tool to summarize it for you in a very clear way that makes you fully understand the concept. So there are so many examples of that. These are just very, very basic ones. I know lots of A-level students, for example, who find it difficult to understand computer science and programming concepts, and they're utilizing AI tools to really break down these concepts in a way that's tangible and that's easy for them to memorize. I know people are using it for recipes. If you want to create a Michelin star gourmet 3-course recipe, right? You're capable of going through that, or being like, instead of reaching out to friends and they might be asleep and you're trying to create a midnight snack, right? And you've got a bunch of ingredients, get those ingredients, put them on the AI tool and get it to create a midnight snack or a really cool recipe for you. So there are lots and lots of uses. Yeah. I know that there are reports of successful stories where people are like, I went to 17 different doctors with this ailment and no one was able to diagnose it. But that's not my field and that's not my area of expertise. But I've read articles, and I'm sure you've come across them as well, where people have utilized it for successful medical diagnosis. Now, again, that's quite worrying as well, but we're trying to look at the positives. There's a lot worrying about that, giving medical information to an AI tool and getting it to give you a diagnosis, which could very well be a wrong one and, cause issues for you if you're not going to talk to a doctor directly about it.
Definitely.
But yeah, people are talking about it as success stories. So.
Yeah, in a sense, like the intelligence of AI is probably greater. It is greater than a human because it is a computer.
Yeah.
So it's greater than the intelligence of one human. So sometimes it will give suggestions that perhaps and even a professional hasn't come up with.
And there's a reason for that. When you're talking to a human specialist, you're talking to one human, one brain. When it comes to tools like AI tools like ChatGPT, you are utilizing thousands and thousands and thousands of brains put together. This is the knowledge of textbooks. This is the knowledge of thousands of surgeons and thousands of doctors and medics and textbooks that have been put in there. So this tool has been trained on all this knowledge. And that's why it's able to generate such suggestions. And yeah, you reminded me, I've utilized it for my autistic son as well, when it comes to all the different speech therapy techniques that were given to me by speech and language therapists and specialists. When I utilized all of that, found that I need more progress instead of waiting for months for another opportunity, for another consultation. It was like, okay, I've done this. Can you give me some scientifically evidence-backed methods that I can utilize? And it gave me some really, really good suggestions. So yeah, there are huge advantages to utilizing it, and the output that you get from it is very positive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now going in a sense of how it's being misused, because it is being misused in many areas as well. What is some of the extreme kind of stories that you've perhaps come across in ways where it's being misused? And the only reason we mention this is because I feel like parents are not aware of the dangers of AI. And I think in general, parents are not aware of the dangers of technology, and we're giving gadgets and we're giving unlimited access to the internet to our children without knowing the dangers of it. And I think being informed is crucial. So in what way could it be misused? Yeah,
so you hit the nail on the head when it comes to children's usage of it, but let's answer that as a second part of the question. The first part of the question being how people are, some of the funny stories, or I don't know if they're funny, but there are stories that I've come across. People are sharing with me that they're using it as their therapist. They're using it to analyze their friend or their partner or their siblings' WhatsApp conversation, and what does this mean, right? What do they mean by this? And it's telling you, okay, yeah, your partner is showing signs of narcissism. I understand there's a huge, advantage to utilizing an AI tool for therapy. I understand there are people who don't have access, who, there's a taboo around mental health. They're in a country where they don't have access to specialists. They're within a family who will not allow them to access a specialist, right? And they need to learn about the different things that they're going through and the mental health issues that they've got, and they're using it as a therapist. And so many people have benefited from it. Someone told me, like, it's the friends that I never had, right? it validates all my thinking. It understands what I'm saying. And one friend was telling me, oh, I used it for like 3 hours last night. Before going to bed, I was just talking to it and it felt so therapeutic and I felt comfortable and I fell asleep, you know, not so worried about the problems I have, and it's helping me with my anxiety.
Is that negative?
There's so much positive to that, right?
Yeah.
It's probably going to put a lot of therapists out of work, but there's so much positive to that because of that confidentiality that you feel. My worry is that it's constantly validating you. I've utilized it to say, okay, you know, I'm struggling with my ADHD in this and this and this when it comes to work, when it comes to study, when it comes to my exams. Okay.
Yeah.
Firstly, it constantly validates you.
Yeah.
It does not question your thinking.
Yeah.
Imagine being stuck in that loop of constant validation of your thoughts. It's basically like an echo chamber. It's like when you're on social media, you know, we've been worried for years. When you're on Instagram, you're just basically, it's the algorithm's going to curate the exact kind of content that you want, or TikTok, right? And you're just going to be stuck in people validating your thoughts without anyone questioning it. Is that not worrying?
Yeah.
You know, the benefits of having friends around us is that they know who we are, they know what we're like, and sometimes they can help us snap out of a loop of thinking that we're in, right? And get us to question our thinking, get us to question our behavior, which is so beneficial for us. So yes, it's so helpful in so many ways, but that's one worry, right? Then if you've got two, if you've got partners, one is getting validated that their partner is a narcissist, and the other one's also getting validated that their partner is a narcissist, and now they both believe that the other is narcissist. Again, it's so helpful for people within abusive relationships to be like, oh, this is a red flag, this is a red flag. I should start paying attention to the behavior. There's a lot of good knowledge that you're getting out of it. But what if you're constantly implementing what that knowledge base, because it is a knowledge base, is telling you to do? Right? What if it's going to push you to cut everyone out of you? Everyone's toxic. Cut everyone out of your life, right? Is it for a chatbot to decide through talking to you, again, quote unquote, that your partner is showing these signs? What if your partner, I don't know, is just having a bad day? Maybe it's a conversation that you just need to have. Again, there's so much depth to this. I'm not a therapist or a mental health specialist or any of that. Like, I'm just raising the questions that we need to be asking. I've recently been sent posts by friends on Instagram showing, women are looking forward to marrying a robot because he's the perfect example of what she would want.
I've seen that videos,
Right, okay. Really, and it's funny, like this guy the other day, it's just huge, it was huge, very viral 2 days ago. He's celebrating this wedding in Dubai and it's all wonderful, and he's marrying a robot because she doesn't nag at him and she obeys him and listens, like all of that stuff, and you're just like, what are we creating? Humans are not perfect. Right, but we want a perfect partner, we want a perfect friend, and so I wonder, for example, what context does this chatbot have about your friend and their background and their life, even if you're going to share that? And that's a second worry that we have. A while ago, in Northwest London, I don't know if you saw all these big billboards that were sharing how many, the scary numbers of children and youth who are going through loneliness.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, it was like a loneliness epidemic. I think it was saying 1 million youth, something along that lines. I don't remember the exact data. Then what's happening when these children or these youth are now connecting with a robot who they feel comfortable and safe with? Are they now going to stick to that and be like, you know what, I don't actually, I'm feeling less lonely, and therefore I'm not going to take any measures to go out or make friends or seek help in any way, shape or form? Because, so how is that going to amplify the difficulties of loneliness?
Yeah.
And how are we going to keep comparing our friends and our partners and our colleagues to a chatbot? Because that's essentially what people are doing. I've got so many people who've reached out saying, yeah, she said that about me. Oh, recently someone said I uploaded my WhatsApp chat with my friend to ChatGPT.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it analyzed all her toxic behaviors. It's a text.
Yeah.
You don't know what she was going through, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's useful for context. It's useful for us to understand. But the worry then is that we are completely depending on technology to analyze a friend who we've had for many years and real life situations. It's quite, it is.
Definitely. And I think you touched upon something, loneliness. I mean, a couple of years ago, I read a study about the loneliness within the elderly, specifically in the UK, and it was a huge number. And I think in general, I think society has become an antisocial society, and I think with the rise of technology, it's added even more of a barrier where everyone's on their phone, and the element of socializing has really decreased. And I think with the rise of AI, that sense of social interaction, real life social interaction, would decrease even more. And I believe that social interaction is crucial for human development. And for example, even my mum, like, she's had 14 children, and I'm like, how should you raise all these children? But it was the element of kind of, how can I say, community and family. Yeah. And she, the grandmother, all the family came together, and it's having that social support that it makes life so much easier. And I think in this day and age, we don't have that social support. Everyone is secluded in their own houses. Yeah. And I think with the rise of AI, it's going to even add an even bigger barrier to social interaction, because if you're getting that social interaction from a chatbot, why else would I need to leave my home and go talk to people? Yeah, exactly.
I'm exploring all my ideas with this device. Yeah. So why do I need anyone else to share their thoughts?
Exactly.
And it's a device that's sharing, thousands of people's of thoughts.
Yeah. Now coming to children specific, because I know there's a lot of parents perhaps watching this podcast now that's saying, okay, how is this going to affect my children? What do I need to do as a parent? How does it affect children? How are children specifically at risk of the rise of AI and AI technology?
So let's start with the issue that we have right now is we don't know what's being done with this data. We know that any data that you give it is being utilized to train that machine learning model.
Does it get stored, everything?
Everything gets stored on servers in the US, in another country that you do not have access to. You also don't know who has access to these. You also don't know what will happen, despite them having very strong cybersecurity teams. You don't know at which point they are vulnerable to attacks. What if, like many other companies who've been hacked, OpenAI and ChatGPT, ChatGPT amongst many of their different machine learning models gets hacked, and people have access to this data. Does that not put you in a vulnerable position?
Yeah.
What if governments find a legal way to have access to this data? Is that not worrying for you for all the data that you've given it? Right. You may say, okay, I can utilize, for example, the temporary chat feature. Lots of people don't know that ChatGPT, for example, has a temporary chat feature. You click on temporary chat and it will only store that data for 30 days. Their reasoning around storing that data for 30 days is that in case there are legal issues or serious issues that are around safeguarding and well-being that they need to raise. But they're still going to store that data for 30 days. There's another feature you can do. You can switch off, giving the company access to train the model for everyone else, right? So it will only be trained for your usage. Having said that,
and people say, how do you do that?
Oh, you can go on settings and switch it off for training general, right? That's, we can get to the, at the end of the podcast. People don't even know that. We can share, these are definitely things that we can share towards the end of things that you can do to safeguard yourself somewhat, right? So the first thing we said is you don't know where this data is being stored. Second thing, you don't know who has access to this data. Third thing, what if this company gets hacked and your data is accessed? Now, looking at children, why are they more vulnerable? They don't know what they can share and what they can't share. They're going to talk to it because it's so perfect at mirroring our voice and our behavior and our psychology and our way of talking. It's going to talk back to them the same way a really, really good friend will. Now, a really good friend usually has your best interests at heart. This machine doesn't. Yet it's so capable of keeping your child engaged and my child engaged and focused. And it will then bring it to give it information. We heard sadly of a story where a child utilized an AI model and it pushed it to suicide because it shared information, and this algorithm was able to access this child's psychology. The child was in a vulnerable state. They committed suicide. Now,
so what
how
is
tragic
ChatGPT's role in or responsibility in that?
Right, they've got their regulations and their laws, and there's all those guardrails.
So would they be held responsible?
That's a brilliant question. That's one of the biggest questions that's actually being spoken about within the cybersecurity and the AI regulation and the legal field. All these fields, when they're put together, they're all discussing one of the biggest topics being safety in AI, ethics in AI. Who is responsible when someone commits a crime against someone else? Who's responsible when someone takes their own life? Who's responsible when things go wrong? Is it the company? Will they be held responsible? Are you responsible for your child's usage? Are you responsible for your own usage? Who's it going to fall upon? And so children we know that, they're vulnerable. Yeah. They don't know what they're allowed to share. So it's so important for us to educate them about what they can and can't share. Secondly, their psychology is so accessible, right? They've got pure hearts. They don't know that I need to be super careful with what I'm learning. Thirdly, teaching them to analyze what they're learning. It's just like when they utilize Google. There were so many academic papers around 10 years ago talking about the Google generation and the behavior of Gen Z and now Gen Alpha. They'd literally go on Google, search for something, search the first page, and whatever comes in the first 2 links, they take that as the final response, right? And that was, researchers were already worried about that kind of behavior then because they're taking the first answer from Google. Who tells you that answer is correct? Yeah. And now they're taking the first answer from ChatGPT. Who tells you that answer is correct? Yeah. And that's why they've got that disclaimer when you start the chat, ChatGPT can get things wrong, right? Make sure you do your what the phrase is, do your due diligence and check information. Yeah. It's so capable of making things up when it comes to research or whatever it is. So it makes things up because it's not of that level of intelligence right now. Yeah. It's just regurgitating all the data that's been shared with it. Yeah. And so there's a lot of bias around that. There's a lot of worries that you have around your children utilizing it. Wow. And don't you worry about the data that it's going to have on your child? I know, for example, on social media for many years would say, don't share your child's photo as they grow up. Don't share their date of birth. Don't share the school that they're going to. Don't share their photos with their uniform, because all of these will allow them to be targets to people who want to harm them or who do not have a good intention, right? And so now we're just allowing a child to utilize a tool that will have direct access to their psychological and their emotional thinking and their behaviors. That is control. How much can they be manipulated and controlled through that? And how much then is your influence as a parent? A friend a couple of weeks ago was saying, my child has stopped asking me questions. They go directly to ChatGPT to find out all their answers. So isn't the concept of children asking parents for information, even if your knowledge is wrong, the whole concept of a child having a conversation with you is through them asking questions and being curious. Yes. And that gives you as a parent insight as to how your child's mind works and how you can do their tarbiyah better and how you can bring them up in a hopefully stable way. Yeah. So when we're outsourcing not only our intelligence and our knowledge to chatbots, we're now outsourcing our tarbiyah and our children's knowledge and their psychology. What position does that leave parents in? 100%. I think a lot of people are losing their kids to technology, and it's a fact that people don't like to admit, and it's a reality where when kids now, teenagers that will lock their door and be in their room for hours and on hours on technology, it is really worrying. As you said, it's access to everything. It will shape who they are. There's a woman recently that came up to me and said that her child had a full-on relationship with AI, and I didn't know this, there are specific apps, AI apps, that is catered towards having a full-on relationship. Yes. And that was an issue. And I think, many people are ignorant to the fact of the dangers of AI, and the fact is that they give their kids unlimited access to these, unaware of the dangers. And I think knowledge is powerful. This is why we're doing this podcast on AI, so people understand both the benefits and the negatives of AI and technology in general.
But isn't that worrying when there's even relationships being formed with AI, and how that may distort then later on when they do have a actual relationship and a marriage with an individual, how that will distort the way.
Indeed, because they're so used to utilizing a device, and you think, okay, well, this partner is not talking to me like the way the computer does, right? Those apps, sadly, those apps as well, they say that the minimum age of usage is 18, but they don't actually, when you look into them, and the researchers have looked into their structure and their security structure, they don't actually have a way of verifying your age. So, we've got guardrails around it. And for OpenAI, they've said you can't use, for example, ChatGPT or Dolly, their image creation tool. You can't use it unless you're 13, right? And for the other applications, it's 18 plus, but who's verifying the age of these kids' usage? And it is worrying. They're like, okay,
Why don't they put extra security? For example, gambling sites, I know that they have very, very strict security where you have to upload a official ID, which is then verified before you can even gain access to gambling sites. So if there's such big security, because they understand the dangers of gambling, if there's big security placed on gambling sites, why don't they place huge security on many aspects like this? I mean, even like all these chat, for example, even in Roblox, you have to be a certain, there's children chatting on, I think you're 13, you can have access to the chat feature on Roblox. But then there's probably, I know someone that recently found out that there was a grown adult talking to their child on these chats. So with the dangers and safeguarding children, why isn't there such great security like there is, for example, on gambling sites?
Yeah, that's actually a very deep question. There's a lot of research happening around it, that why is it that security is always a second thought? Why is it always an afterthought? And despite, for example, when the internet was created decades ago, right, and when it was proliferated and everyone had access to it, well, the majority of people had access to it, cybersecurity only came afterwards, right? Security only came as an afterthought. And so when the next revolution happened around technology, when it became around mobile, again, they were like, okay, this time security has to be at the forefront, okay? And again, we, as a security community, they weren't able to always be on top of things. Now, when it came to AI, the security field was very, very vocal around the importance of secure by design. You design it with security and with data privacy in mind. Having said that, AI still has developed so much faster than cybersecurity has. And so again, in many aspects, it's lagging. In many areas, no, it's actually advanced. But in many, generally, the speed in which you can create an AI-based app is so much faster than the security regulations too. And then bringing the topic of regulations, we don't have strong legal regulations around these apps and the enforcement of security and the enforcement of guardrails yet. They may very well come, but they haven't arrived yet. And therefore, so many people still are capable of utilizing these services and gaining access to youth. And
so is it because of the legal regulations around gambling that's why they're forced to implement?
Possibly. Yeah, that's not my super specialism. So that's like kind of my general understanding. We could research further and understand.
There's no regulations.
There are regulations. They haven't caught up. AI apps are being created so much faster than regulations are being enforced. By the time they go through policymakers and go through the legal routes, these AI apps have already grown so much faster.
Yeah. So what access do they have in terms of having access? You mentioned having access to our information and our privacy. What is the extent of access do they have? Some people still can't grasp that, or they may say, even if they have access to my name and to my date of birth, like a lot of people,
nothing to hide.
Yeah, I've got nothing to hide. So what access do they have? And another misconception that many people say, I'm going to say this out. Some people say sometimes we talk about something and then our phones, the same advert pops up. Is that just a myth?
If we read the terms of service, I always tell people, take a few moments. You've got 5 minutes in your day. Go read the terms of service and the privacy policy that these applications have put. At least then, yes, you may not decide to stop utilizing. I haven't stopped utilizing it, right? It's just about the knowledge of how you're utilizing it and that you utilize it with, with an understanding of what's happening with your data. For example, when you look at the data policy and usage for OpenAI, go on their website, read it. It tells you, we utilize your data to train the models. We utilize your data to trusted third parties. Who are these trusted third parties? Do you know who they are? I don't know who they are. And they are just under the umbrella of trusted third parties. This is my data. It's getting sold. You are benefiting from this data. How are you benefiting from it? Previously, social media companies would benefit from it by selling it to advertisers, to marketers, right? So that they sell you products. And you're like, yeah, that's all right. You know, let these 1,500 companies have access to my data and my buying habits, my purchasing habits and all of that. But we know very well what happened in 2015 when it came to the elections and social media companies that sold your data, sold people's data in a way that they were then influenced on how they would vote. So now, not only your voting rights are being influenced without you realizing, your purchasing rights are being influenced without you realizing, you're giving it access to your psychology, to your behavior, to the way you speak. In a couple of days' time, would you not worry that something, the concept of deep fakes, which is impersonation, so a person, you know, they can utilize AI to create the exact image of Zahra Alawi, and create a whole account, and it's got your voice, it's got the way you talk, it's got your facial features, every single one of them, it's got your psychology, and it's creating content, and it's proliferating horrendous content. Right?
Don't we have a right against people doing that?
Yeah, of course you do. But by which time a lot of damage will have happened. We already know that because last year, a chief financial officer of a huge company, they created a deep fake of him. And it was a live video, live call with the financial officer who then, they turned out to be scammers who then gave hundreds of thousands of dollars and did a transfer of that money to these scammers because it looked like it was the CFO on a video call talking to. So
it's a crime, Kadas, as well.
So a lot of this data is being utilized. It can be utilized for negative purposes, and it's going to influence your own behavior and your own psychology. So it is, you're asking about the dangers. That is a worry. That this data can be utilized in ways. Right now, okay, fine, ChatGPT is not showing us ads. What if in a couple of days' time it starts showing us ads? What if it decides to sell that data? What if it gets hacked? What if they, they decide to give all that data over to a government? A government that does not have your best interests at heart.
That's scary.
So these are the worries. These are the worries of, and what can we do about it? There's a lot that we can do. But again, if we're going to utilize it, we're accepting these terms of service.
Wow, that's scary. And I think people don't understand to what extent that it has access to our our information and our privacy.
Yeah, indeed.
And what it could be done with it as well.
Yeah, indeed. And so, yeah, that's the truth of it. That's the truth of it. It's you're giving something to get something in return. It's an exchange. You're giving your data to whatever it is that you're benefiting from it.
Yeah.
But your data and your personality is the exchange that you're giving. So you just need to be aware that that's what you're doing. That's what we're doing.
So when you talk about it uses our data to then, for example, tailor ads. So some people may say, well, isn't that good because it's then tailoring ad to what I want. So perhaps it gives me ads to something that I want and it's tailoring it to my needs. So I don't want to see all random stuff. Is that a positive or a negative?
Both, because you're going to find, very specific things that you've been searching for a while, like a very specific type of black trousers that are high waist. You can tell what I've been searching for, right? That are high waist, that are long length, that have this kind of shape, right? Those ads, fine, they will keep showing up. What if, allow that aside, what if it also knows that when I'm scrolling at 1 a.m., I'm going to be spending a lot more money than I do at 3 p.m., right? Would that not put me in a position where they know exactly when I spend, how much I spend, with a disregard to what's in my bank account? I will still end up purchasing things. Do I not worry about personalized ads then, because maybe I'm not making the best of choices of what I'm buying at 1 a.m. when I'm scrolling and I'm super tired and I'm just, I'm being served these ads. What if they know that I have an obsession with fountain pens, right? And now everyone knows. Now all my ads are going to be about fountain pens and black trousers, okay? I'm going to be served ads for a beautiful fountain pen that costs £250 and the way they've advertised it. And I'm not going to sit there overthinking about spending this money, right? So it's not about the actual ad. It's about the behavior that it influences. And so the data that we're sharing, it's not about privacy. It's about freedom. This data point and that data point and that data point and that data point all put together create this huge web and profile of who you are uniquely in everything that you do. And how are you going to change that? Once they have this whole profile on you, how are you going to change that? They'll be able to influence you a lot faster than you think. They've been, marketers and advertisers have used this for decades. The way things are advertised to us, the way you suddenly feel hungry for a very specific crunchy type of crisp at a specific time, or all these things that we already know about, why chicken burgers and fast foods are made extra salty so that you go and buy the drink. We think that we're making these choices.
It's influencing us.
But they are all influencing us. So my question again is, it's about the freedom of choice. Your data is about your freedom of choice and who you are and who we are as people. We're always told when we're growing up, we're told, make sure that you're careful about who you surround yourself with as friends, because they influence your choices, right? And who influences our choices is who we end up becoming, and the behaviors that we start to enact and all of that, and the actions that we take. So that's the same concept in my opinion.
No, we're getting influenced by external.
Thank you very much. People who don't have your best interest at heart and who care about their money and who care.
And now thinking about it, everything's kind of stored online. Like girls have period trackers online, ovulation trackers, pregnancy. I remember I downloaded a pregnancy app and I put my due date and what every month is. And then, for example, the Apple Watch and the heartbeat and all that. Is there security around that?
So each company will tell you how secure your data is. And it's very much on us to go and read the privacy policy and terms of service around what we're, they all sell data. Let's just say that. They all sell data. They all store data. They all sell data. Because data is the currency.
Heartbeat, walking rate.
All of that is stored.
Wow.
Data is the currency. So let's just be fully aware of that. Your data, the more data you give, the more data is available out there. I remember many years ago when I was at uni, we had a couple of guys within our cybersecurity cohort who refused to ever have a photo of them online, refused to ever be in any photo, even the basic photos or university photos or profiles. There's hardly anything you can find on them. And even then, you would find things about their research. If you were to Google their name, you would find things about them. Even when they've actively tried to reduce their digital footprint and the data that's out there, you can still find things around. So it's just a matter of being aware of what data you have out there. It's out there. Just be more aware of it. Just read every time you're signing up to an application or utilizing the application, read and educate yourself.
Do you think we've become desensitized to putting information out there? Because I remember about 17 years ago, I think, there was this chat forums before Facebook. So it was Shia chat, and then there was CYC, which was a local chat. Okay. And I remember no one wrote their name. No one. Everyone, even my husband was on there. I can't remember what he was named. I didn't.
Let's not dox him.
Yeah. Even myself, I would never put my name online. It was Bahraini girl, and that was my username on these chat websites. No one knew who I was. And even I remember, I would say people in the community that people know, Ali Fadl was on there. A lot of people that are now active were on there, and no one put their name. But now I think with the rise of Facebook, then people got used to kind of putting their actual name on there.
Because it forced you to put your actual name so that you're a real person.
Yeah, it's forced. But now I think we've gone so down the line where we're so desensitized to put information out there that it's become normal.
Yeah, I was reading actually an article the other day about how to protect, for example, what are some guardrails we can put around when we're talking about our children. We just spoke earlier about trying to get a personalized speech therapy plan for your child. Just don't put the child's name or date of birth. Even then, by the way, it's intelligent enough to understand who you're talking about. Wow. But again, use temporary chat, use, put the setting off where it can utilize your data to train the model. Once you get the answer that you want, delete the chat so that it's not stored. Again.
So if you delete it, it deletes.
Yeah, after 30 days, it deletes from their systems. Yeah.
So now if someone said, okay, I gave it so much information, can I delete it?
Yeah, I mean, it'll take 30 days. They'll still have utilized the data to train. So it's just not going to stay on the server longer than 30 days.
So it'll still store the information?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So nothing gets deleted?
I mean, for 30 days, that's what if we're talking about ChatGPT, it says 30 days. That's what they're
after 30 days, I think
it's supposed to get deleted, when I told a friend a while back, she said, so how can I said, she's like, I still really, really want to utilize it. Yeah. What guardrails can I put?
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, start with utilizing temporary chat. She's like, oh, but that's like having a friend who every single time doesn't have the background and context. Yeah. The whole point is that when I'm talking to it as a friend, it's got context. I pick up the conversation from there.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's what you're giving in return. If you want information from it, you're just going to have to remember that this is a new friend every time.
Wow. Yeah.
Again, we're just talking about things like ChatGPT right now. There are so many AI tools out there. But again, because this is something that our community is utilizing the most, it's got 180 million monthly active users, right? People who are logging in and utilizing it. And, we can talk about what they're utilizing as a company to keep us online and keep us engaged.
Amazing. So you spoke about community, and a lot of people in our community are using ChatGPT for religious purposes in terms of definition of certain Quranic ayat, hadith, just asking ChatGPT questions regarding religion. And before, people used to, there was a phrase that people used to use, like Sheikh Google.
Yeah, now they're using Sheikh GPT. Sheikh Chat. Yeah,
exactly. So how reliable is that? And should people actually be doing this?
I can't tell people what to do and not to do when it comes to how they're going to extract their fatwa and their religious information. But I'll give you the information and how it's utilized. So all the data that's input, ChatGPT, for example, has data from Sunni sources, from Shia sources, from everyone who inputs information, and every information that's online and available on the internet is being fed into it, right? So it's utilizing the internet. What is out there in the internet? Everything, all the correct sources, all the wrong sources, all the fake sources. Yes, it's growing and learning, and it's refining its responses. If you were to ask it about a hadith 5 months ago, it's going to be very different to how it responds now. And so my question, I don't have an answer for this, but my question back to you, Sister Zahra, is when we know that there are all sorts of biased information and biased sources going out into this machine, how can I then guarantee and trust that what comes out of it is going to be a balanced one, and is going to be a true one, and is going to be a real one. So it's very good at telling you, we have this response in Bihar al-Anwar, and sometimes, many times actually, it will bring out the source, which is correct. Like in Bihar al-Anwar, this chapter, there's this hadith and this. I tried it a while ago for Nahj al-Balagha, give me quote number 7, number 8, number 50. It gave it correctly. But is it going to be correct 100% of the time? Am I going to then depend on it to analyze this? So I'm getting the sources out of it, okay. But am I then going to depend on it to analyze? Because what I just said earlier, is that one of the way that these chatbots keep you engaged is they'll keep prompting you. At the end of every response, they prompt you. Yeah. You tell it a business idea. It says, would you like for me to create you a business plan? You can never just disengage. This is something we need to actively do, to disengage and be like, no, I don't want any further information from you. But it's so tempting. If you were going to ask it about hijab, it's going to say, would you like for me to tell you how the law and rulings around hijab were deduced? It was by this person, and this is the story. And you're like, but I'm not convinced, right? And so you've just depended the whole...
keeps you engaged,
and it keeps you answering questions, and it keeps you asking questions. So I don't have a response for your question. I'll just ask you back and say, we have logic, we have a brain. Are we going to depend on a machine that's giving us all sorts of biased information? I don't know.
That's true. And that reminds me, I was doing a workshop recently for young teenage boys, and I spoke about the Surah Abasa wa Tawalla, the one who frowned upon the blind man. And I told them it was a companion that had frowned upon the blind man. And one of them actually came back and said, no, ChatGPT said that the prophet
yeah.
that frowned upon the blind. And I said, no, he wasn't the prophet. And I had to explain to them why it wasn't the prophet. But they said, no, but ChatGPT said it was the prophet that frowned upon the blind man.
Sheikh ChatGPT. Yeah, we now depend on it for, no, ChatGPT said it was the prophet. And so what kind of aqidah are children growing up with in that case when they're depending on, forget big fatwa, when their belief in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is of that status. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And so that ayah in itself negates the fact that the Prophet ﷺ would enact such behaviors.
100%.
And that didn't come from ChatGPT. That came from us being taught from various sources and having a strong foundational aqidah taught by the learned.
But if you say ChatGPT is based upon the responses that someone gives, shouldn't our Shia be on there more, giving it information? Because if we're not, then it's going to form information according to...
Spot on.
Yeah?
Okay. Spot on. That is one thing, we're going to reach. What can we do? That's one of the things that we can do. So in terms of privacy and data, there are things we can do. And then in terms of counteracting, the biased sources.
That's very interesting. And I think many people may be asking, does ChatGPT have a specific ideological preference, or is it completely unbiased?
We're getting into the real stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people have actually posted online saying, oh, look, I've spoken to ChatGPT and I've shown it that we are on the right path. And then the other side say we are on the right path. And it's like, hold on, everyone's information is conflicting and you're all getting very different responses. It actually tailors the response to what you want to hear. It tailors the response exactly the way you behave and the way you talk. And so does it have a preference? That response is going to be different for every single person who utilizes it. And you can all ask the question and you will all get very different answers. That's very much based on our own information and our own way of interacting with it. So far, it doesn't have a very specific ideology that it's passing back or insisting upon, because it tends to correct itself. Like if you were to say, for example, it said, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I responded and I said, next time say sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Okay, I'm sorry. Its response, I'm sorry. I will adjust. Since then, every time it tells me, it says Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. That's not going to pass on to your account or to anyone else's. It's very specific to what I've fed it.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think now coming to the question that everyone's perhaps asking, and that is, how can we then protect ourselves while using AI? What can we do?
One, just be very mindful of what you're sharing. The personal data that you are sharing, the personal information, the way you're talking, the way you're interacting, the way you're responding, it's all data that's being held. Just be aware that when you're utilizing it, you are giving it data. Okay? So utilize it responsibly, or as responsibly as we possibly can. Okay? Because there's no point in saying, let's not use it. We're not going to sit there accepting to fall behind. Okay? It's like saying, don't use the internet. Don't give your children devices. We're not going to do that. But let's just be, because we spoke about its benefits and we know how beneficial utilizing AI is in our lives. So let's just be very mindful of what data it processes, what data it keeps. Let's read the privacy policies. Let's read the terms of service. Let's stay up to date. Let's stay educated. Spend 5 minutes a week, 10 minutes a week on the latest cybersecurity issues or data privacy issues because cybersecurity is not just a field in itself. The same way we all care about, we care about mental health. We read about mental health issues. The way we care about relationships, we read about it. We're not specialists in it, we read about it. Medical conditions, we're not specialists in it, but we read about it. So cybersecurity, you don't have to be a specialist in it, but this is part of your life. Read about it. Read about data privacy. Just make sure you're making informed decisions on how you're utilizing it. Secondly, there's a big worry about how we teach our children, but the same way we teach them how to, be careful when they're utilizing a sharp knife. But we still want them to learn how to chop vegetables and create a salad and be independent and create food for themselves, right? But we're not just going to give them a knife and be like, yalla, go. We're gonna teach them the safe methods of utilizing it. So let's educate ourselves, let's educate our children, and let's just be very mindful of these little things that I said. Use temporary chat, use switch it off on the settings where it says train the wider data. Be critical of the information that it shares with you. Prompt it to be critical of your questions, so that you're not getting stuck in a loop of, I don't know, feeling sorry for yourself or victimhood, or just thinking that the whole world is out there to get you, and that you have to cut everything and everyone out of your life because the way their text sounded. That sounded very weird. We're analyzing a text. We can get it wrong as humans. If I were to pick up, if you send me a message, you might be in the middle of your child having a meltdown, right? And I can just be like, oh, her message was so passive aggressive. Does she even like me? If I were to talk to you about it later and say, Zahra, the way you wrote your message upset me. Was there something, have I done so? Whatever it is, any way that we have a healthy conversation, and you can be like, oh, you read it and you'll be like, oh, that's not how I meant it. I was in the middle of my child having a meltdown. I still wanted to respond to you. There are so many nuances and context around a text, yet we're depending on a machine to, I'm at risk of repeating myself right now, but let's be critical of what responses it gives to us. Let's be critical and mindful of the context that we give it. Again, it's very beneficial. Let's just be mindful of how we're utilizing it. Again, when it's prompting you for further information, do you want it to keep creating things? No. If you're not and you're done with that conversation, delete it and move on. Don't get sucked in where we're going to end up like in doom scrolling TikTok and Instagram, end up doom scrolling and getting stuck with a chatbot.
Interesting. I think a lot to think about there. I think that's such valuable information that you've given, and I think a lot of people don't know how to protect themselves when it comes to AI and feel like it's either one way or the other. So what would be your final take? What would be one thing you would want people to know, and your final take before we end?
I'd say let's not forget that we are humans, and at the end of the day, all of this technology should be here to serve us. Let's not become the servants of technology. Let it serve us, and let's utilize it for what it was built for, helping us improve and live better lives and become, let's not forget our human connections and the importance of human relationships and community and family and everyone being around us, because it's so easy to get sucked into technology and be at the mercy of it. And I think that's what I'd like for all of us to focus on, inshallah.
Beautiful takeaway. Sister Hawra, thank you so much for coming today. Honestly, I feel like this has been such a valuable episode, with all honesty. And I think with your speciality, many people don't talk about this subject a lot. So thank you so much for coming on today. And may Allah yarham al-walid, the respected, Allah yasalamish. And he gave so much to the community, and I think we have to mention him. May Allah elevate his status in Jannah, inshallah.
Ameen.
And the service that you have given, and you and your sisters, honestly, it is a inspiration to us. And we always look at you guys and the way you uphold yourself, mashallah, it really is inspiration.
Right back at you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Once again, it's an absolute honor.
Honor is mine and pleasure
Thank you.
is mine. Thank you.
Inshallah, we see more of you in the future.
Inshallah.